down to the officers and the individuals who fought the wars alongside who used to be the Mujahideen. There may have been grey areas. Now, the military leadership in Pakistan have come up through the ranks while combating these terrorists on the front lines. They fought them in Swat, they fought them in South Waziristan, they fought them in North Waziristan. They earned their honors in valor and in bravery while fighting these terrorists, and then got promoted to the current ranks that they are while they lead our armed forces. So in that context, we fought the bloody war over what's left over from Afghan 1. The international community, through FATF, has only recently endorsed Pakistan's actions against the groups of concern to India. So we've lived up to international scrutiny of the FATF that endorsed Pakistan's actions against the LET and other groups, and have approved the actions that Pakistan has taken. And we've gone from the grey list to the white list because they believe that those actions are worth a violin or of significance. Now, so far, I've only talked about the challenges that we faced from Afghan 1. The new terrorist problem that we're facing is Afghan 2, the consequences of the fall of Kabul. And we've seen in the space of the last couple of years a significant increase in terrorist attacks within Pakistan. At this point in time, if we continue with the trajectory that the terrorist attacks are just taking place in this year, and we're not at the end of the year yet, but if it continues at this trajectory and we get to the end of the year, then this year, 2025, will be the bloodiest year Pakistan has seen as far as terrorism is concerned. Year after year, we've been the largest victims of terrorism. So far, 92,000 lives lost. Even this year, we hold the record, the glorious record, of being the country where the single largest number of terrorist attacks are taking place and the single largest number of victims of terrorism exist. It is in this context that we passionately advocate for regional cooperation, international cooperation to combat terrorism. The US just 2 days ago called Pakistan a phenomenal partner in combating terrorism. We have managed to collectively thwart terrorist attacks within Pakistan and in capitals across the Western world as a result of Pakistan and those Western countries' close collaboration and CT efforts. Pakistan and India, since 2012, have had no collaboration on counterterrorism. The last collaboration we had was within the confines of this comprehensive dialogue that we now seek. Even in that cooperation, Pakistan shared information as far as LET is concerned and the terrorists that were going to attack their country, which resulted in India taking action against those groups. India never supported Pakistan in our concerns about the BLA and the Majid Brigade and the support that they provide for these organizations. Even now, we believe that the only way for us to secure the future of South Asia from terrorism, from the new threats that we're going to face, will ultimately be cooperation between India and Pakistan. Without talking to one another, if you even look at the 2019 attack, which is the last attack that resulted in planes in the air, between that day and this day, the April 22nd attack in Pahalgam, no communication, no intelligence sharing took place as far as terrorism is concerned. And finally, the fact that India cannot turn off the taps is untrue. They've turned off the taps in the past. 1948, 1949, I believe it was, they shut Pakistan's water. They have been in violation of it then resulted in negotiating the Indus Water Treaty, dividing our sharing the resources. Within the mechanisms of the Indus Water Treaty, we had complaints that India was violating the Indus Water Treaty, was damming places they shouldn't dam, was building structures they shouldn't build, was building structures larger than they were allowed to under the treaty. But those cases we were facing through the structure of this mechanism. What India has done is A, threatened to turn off the taps. And I want to repeat, just threatening to turn off the tap is a violation of the UN Charter. It's not about how much damage they have caused, just making this threat is a violation of international law. Now they implement it in two ways. One way is the extreme scenario where Pakistan has already laid out that this would be an act of war. That would be damming the rivers that are right in accordance to this treaty, carving out new canals on those 3 rivers. The other way that they damage us, or they turn off the dams, is you only have to delay the release of the water from the so-called dam by up to a week. 1 week's delay or even less would mean that our crops die. And our agriculture economy is devastated, our people is devastated, our food security has connotations of those. So, it's not about their ability or capacity to turn off the dams. This precedent should never be allowed to set. We cannot allow the weaponization of water in this way. We are seeking a new dialogue with India, where we will make new promises with one another, potentially sign new treaties. For that process to start, they need to respect all treaties. They need to take that decision. Take us back to the position that we were before this ceasefire, not just militarily, but also diplomatically.
I mean, if I may just ask, just add to it. How long do you think it would take to turn the tap off? How long does it take to build a dam? You'd blink, and we'd all have the answer. It takes 6 to 8 years. 2019 is when we had our skirmish. That was 6 years ago. That's how long it takes to build a dam. So when you say, have they turned the tap off? Should we wait when we are left with no water and the tap is actually turned off? So it doesn't take much to build a dam. It doesn't take much to build a canal. So the fundamental question is not have they turned the tap off, because the chairman has already answered that yes, they have. Over the past 1.5 months, they've flooded and held back water when we needed it for cropping. And for the winter cropping, they're going to do it again because there's scarcity of water. And when they hold back water during winter cropping, our saplings, our seeds would die. And they only have to hold it back through the cascade of dams that they have just for about 10 days. And we'd have food security, we'd have drought. But that's not the fundamental question. The fundamental question is, when you're making policy, are you making policy for day before yesterday? We'd blink and we'd be in the 7th year. And then what are we going to do? That's basically fundamental to this dispute.
If anybody has a couple of final questions for me, then I have to step out to another interview, and I'll leave you in the very able hands of everybody else to also answer your questions. Yes.
A couple of questions. Thank you. Thank you very much. This has been a very insightful afternoon. Greatly appreciate it. My name is Eric Piaget. I'm a researcher at the United Nations University in Bruges, and I'm coordinating a work package on science diplomacy at the VUB, which is part of this alliance of universities called Utopia. But I very much admire your commitment to dialogue and diplomacy. What I was interested in knowing is, of course, the ecosystem of diplomacy is much broader than foreign ministries. You track 1 and then track 2. The Institute of Multi-Track Diplomacy even has 9 different tracks of diplomacy: businesses, civil society, religious organization. I was just curious to know how you might envision engaging these other diplomatic actors towards your
You would take more questions?
Sure. We can do like a quick fire round of a couple of questions, and I'll go through.
Andreas Stignitz, work for the EAS. A very short question. Sorry. To which extent do you think that it is India is driven by its domestic agenda, and do you think another government in India would bring a different relationship between India and Pakistan?
Very good question.
Michel Dekemeter, Club of Brussels. We are experts in regeneration, socioeconomic and environmental. We did an inventory of over 100 projects of greening in the deserts, in hyper-arid areas. A lot of solutions exist, and I was wondering if you have also, because the water problem is going to be worse by the year. So we can try to manage what we can manage today, but we know is going to be worse. Solutions exist, local solutions for water management, flood captation, etc., etc. Do we have experiences like that, and knowledge centers that knowledge can be shared with them, Pakistan or not, or would you be interested to connect?
Okay, absolutely. I think that let's start answering those questions. Other tracks, it takes two to tango. So someone has to agree to any level of talk before a talk can take place. At the moment, India is totally disagreeing because I believe they find it convenient to use for them to have a justification to not talk and then unilaterally act, whether it was in 2019, the unilateral changes that they took within the Kashmir context or in the Indus Water Treaty. But obviously we will continue to pursue that path, and we would be very keen at any level and at any way this conversation could start. I believe that a minimal improvement should be that we, at the moment, we have DGMO to DGMO talks as far as the ceasefire implementation is concerned. The minimal elevation of that talks would be an NSA to NSA level talk, and then sort of develop it forward towards a comprehensive dialogue. As far as domestic politics, absolutely it's driven this. The only variable that has changed throughout this scenario is the domestic politics of India and the ruling government of India. Never before was water used as a weapon. Never before Anyway, as far as their domestic politics is concerned, I also don't want to comment on it beyond the reasonable, I can comment on it from my concerns, but ultimately that's a decision that the Indian public has to make. It's a decision that the Indian public has made, and we in Pakistan have to deal with this reality. And the reality is that you have a new government in India, that's a Hindutva government in India, that seeks inspiration not from the Gandhian secular India, but by the RSS assassin that assassinated Gandhi. They have a completely different approach to how India should work, how the region should work. They're ideologically committed to the idea of Akhand Bharat, which means that a greater India, an imaginary India that never existed as a single entity, that exists in the minds of these Hindu extremists. And they want to impose that view of the world on the entire region. And it encompasses Afghanistan, Pakistan, Nepal, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh. So I'm sure people are watching what's happened with the only nuclear armed nation with trepidation. But this map of the greater India, and other countries in the world have similar aspirations. This map of Akhand Bharat is on the walls of the Indian Parliament. So they've painted what they'd like to see in the region. And they use the tool that they use to achieve this is they use the whistle of terrorism to demonize the Muslims in India, the Muslims in Indian occupied Kashmir, and now, by extension, the Muslims in Pakistan. And Europe knows all too well what happens when you normalize the dehumanization of a specific community anywhere in the world. They've done it, you've witnessed this in the past. They're doing it before our eyes. Obviously that has consequences. But we're saying we're willing to have dialogue with the devil in the interest of peace. We believe that India is not in its own, whatever its aspirations are, whatever its ideology is, the decisions that their leadership has made has left both sides less secure. It is not in the interest of India that we leave our fates in the hands of non-state actors and terrorists. On the one hand, every time talks have been derailed, they've been derailed because of a terrorist act. So even in those circumstances, we, the leaders of India and Pakistan, are not deciding the fate of our people. We're leaving it to the terrorists to decide that we're talking, so they'll go into an attack and we sabotage the talk. Now we're saying that the decision to go to war will not be taken by Modi or Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif. The decision to go to war between two nuclear arms nations will also be taken by nameless, faceless terrorists who decide to attack at will. This entire corner that Modi is painting his country and our region into is not in our mutual interest. To say that we have fought generation after generation over Kashmir and we will continue to fight. We will never talk. To say that we fought then after that consistently over the issue of terrorism, but still we're not to talk or to investigate. And then to add to that a new fault line and say that now we damn the future generations of Pakistan and India to fight over water. That may be a fate that Modi is willing to damn his own citizens to. It's not a fate that I want to damn my citizens to, and we hold no ill will to the people of India. We would not want to damn them to this fate either. will be a compulsion. We'll all have to talk to one another eventually to address these issues. With the developments in our neighborhood over the last 24 hours, one border with Afghanistan was already, we're dealing with those consequences. Another border with India is a nuclear fault line, and our border with Iran is now under stress, to say it lightly. In that context, there's a false sense of calm that has prevailed, that now that we've achieved a ceasefire, it must mean that we've achieved a peace. We're further than that peace than we should be. And I believe that the European Union is very well placed to make the case for the respect for international law, to make the case for the non-weaponization of water, and to continue to make the case for dialogue and diplomacy as the only path to peace. I'm very sorry that I personally have to run, but I'm leaving my very, very able team behind to answer the rest of your questions. Thank you.
आला सतह पार्लिमानी वफ्द के सरबराह बिलावल भुट्टो जरदारी की यूरोपियन थिंक टैंक को खिते की सूरत हाल पर ब्रीफिंग। उन्होंने कहा कि भारतीय जारियत पर पाकिस्तान ने तहम्मुल से काम लिया। भारत ने सिंतास मुआहदा गैर कानूनी तौर पर यकतरफा मुअत्तल किया। पाकिस्तान भारत के साथ तमाम मसाइल बातचीत के जरिए से हल करने का ख्वाहां है। पहलगाम वाक़े पर तहकीकात की पेशकश का मुस्बत जवाब नहीं दिया गया। उन्होंने कहा कि सिंतास जैसे मुआहदे कमज़ोर हुए तो खित्ते का अमन कमज़ोर होगा। माहौलियाती वसाइल को हथियार बनाना ख़तरनाक है। भारतीय हुकूमत ने पहलगाम वाक़े के अभी तक कोई शवाहिद नहीं दिए। पाक भारत जंगबंदी के लिए बैनुल अक़वामी बरादरी की कोशिशें लायक तहसीन हैं। बिलावल भुट्टो ने कहा कि इंसदाद दहशतगर्दी और कश्मीर के मामले पर बातचीत करने के लिए तैयार हैं। और इसके अलावा उन्होंने कहा कि भारत ने पाकिस्तान का पानी रोका तो पाकिस्तान जवाब पर मजबूर होगा। सिंतास मुआहदा मुअत्तल हुआ तो दुनिया का कोई मुआहदा काबिल अमल नहीं रहेगा। माहौलियाती वसाइल को हथियार बनाना इंतहाई ख़तरनाक बात है। ईरान पर इसराइली हमले की शदीद मजम्मत करते हैं। बिलावल भुट्टो जरदारी का कहना था कि अक़वाम मुत्तहिदा की करारदादों के मुताबिक मसला कश्मीर का हल चाहते हैं। खित्ते में अमन के लिए मसला कश्मीर का हल ज़रूरी है। इसके अलावा बिलावल भुट्टो जरदारी ने कहा कि दहशतगर्दी के खिलाफ जंग में पाकिस्तान ने हज़ारों जानों की कुर्बानी दी है। अमेरिका समेत आलमी बरादरी ने दहशतगर्दी के खिलाफ पाकिस्तान के इक़दामात को सराहा।
To help us build those places, that innovation, ecology and infrastructure in which we can climatize those GMOs which are germinable, so that don't lead to gene escape, which has externalities that we don't want to face with. So that's basically the first thing that we are doing, which is strategic. We've already done that for imports. We're beginning to do that for our local indigenization of germinable seeds. And we're basically restricting ourselves to the highest standards, either the FDA approval or the European standards. Those are the only two standards that we're using in order for us to make sure that we can go grow crops and food products in areas that are now deserts. We're also doing tactical stuff, which is laser leveling and tunnel farming and pivots, so that we don't flood our lands. You know, a water dam of 6 million acre feet, by the time it hits the grounds, it's only 3 and 3.5 million acre feet of water. That's equal to a dam, a 6 million acre feet dam. A 6 million acre feet dam is equal to 3% improvement in water productivity in terms of yields. And that's what we are committing ourselves to. Whether it be through pivots or through laser leveling or traditional organic farming, we want to improve the productivity of water in the way of yields. And that's the second direction in which we're going. The third thing that we're doing is the announcement that we have recently made of Green University. We are basically trying to build a green university, and this green university is going to have a direct link with the green university in Central Asia. And whether it be the Aral Sea, or basically the Gulfs that we are facing, or the deserts that we have, we're going to have joint research programs, we're going to have faculty exchange programs, we're going to have student exchange programs, so that we don't end up with Aral Seas in our region. So these are the three central pivots in terms of building up forests. We have a very large afforestation program. We basically are trying to do GMOs for water scarce areas. We're trying to build a university, a green university, which is going to be linked on the one hand with Central Asia and on the other hand with our friends in Europe as well as in the United Kingdom.
Any more questions?
I believe no question that I can add a bit for Looks like all of us are a little tired at this part of the evening. The only thing that I would like to add that Pakistan is very much clear that this is a peace-seeking mission. We are requesting the world, we have requested the United Nations, all the multilateral forums, we have requested in Washington DC, in London, now at Brussels, EU, and everyone, that Pakistan is seeking peace. We are not we were not very much jubilant when we proved our military prowess over India. We do not want to question the fate of 1.7 billion people of Pakistan and India, considering that both are nuclear powers. India's mission was seeking impunity because they want to behave like a superpower of the region, which they are not. And Pakistan is not going to budge with their jingoistic remarks, with their hate-mongering, with their targeting of Muslims. Pakistan wants to have a respectable kind of a companionship because we are neighbors, we cannot change our neighbors. So we are very much clear that Pakistan will keep working for the peace in the Indian subcontinent, and especially right now, we are urging for a sense of urgency amongst the global powers. When Iran is being hit by Israel, their sovereignty is questioned by Israel, and apart from condemning that, we are really, really concerned about the peace of the region. So that I have to say.
Well, in case there are no more questions, on behalf of the Embassy of Pakistan in Brussels, it is my privilege and honor to offer my sincere gratitude to you all for joining us during this event. So this brings us to the close of this event for today's evening. Thank you very much.
And peace.
ब्रसल्स में आला सतह पार्लिमानी वफ्द की ब्रीफिंग इस वक्त जारी थी। यूरोपियन थिंक टैंक को डॉक्टर मुसादिक मलिक, फैसल सब्जवारी और बिलावल भुट्टो जरदारी ने ब्रीफ किया। उन्होंने कहा कि अगर सिंतास मुआहदा मुअत्तल हुआ तो दुनिया का कोई मुआहदा काबिल अमल नहीं रहेगा। हम ग्रीन यूनिवर्सिटी बनाना चाहते हैं, एफॉरेस्टेशन पर काम जारी है, हम पानी के ज़रिए प्रोडक्टिविटी को बढ़ाना चाहते हैं और भारत बलूचिस्तान में दहशतगर्दी में मुलविस है। पीटीवी न्यूज़ से फिल वक्त इतना ही।
दुरुस्त हर वक्त बार वक्त। खानदानी मनसूबाबंदी, एक जिम्मेदारी, एक एहसास, आइंदा नस्लों के रोशन मुस्तकबिल का राज। खानदानी मनसूबाबंदी के आर्जी और मुस्तकिल तरीकाजात न सिर्फ माँ बच्चे की सेहत के ज़ामिन हैं, बल्कि खुशियों भरे घराने की तश्कील में भी मावन हैं। खानदानी मनसूबाबंदी के तरीक़ाकार के बारे में जानने के लिए करीबी फैमिली हेल्थ सेंटर या हेल्थ क्लिनिक तशरीफ लाएं। अपनों के रोशन कल के लिए दानिशमंदाना फैसला करें आज। मुतवाज़न खानदान, खुशहाल पाकिस्तान। महकमा सेहत व आबादी, हुकूमत पंजाब। दुरुस्त हर वक्त बार वक्त।
सैयद आसिम मुनीर की जो जंगी हिकमत अमली थी, जिस तरह उन्होंने सिविल क़यादत से वज़ीर आज़म शहबाज शरीफ साहब के साथ मिल के जो जवाब दिया और जिस तरह का जवाब दिया और जो 6 तैयारे गिराए और उसके बाद जो हमारे अल-फतह मिसाइल जो कि हमने बनाए, वो बता दिया भारत को ये हमने स्टोर में सजा के रखने के लिए नहीं है, ये वक्त पड़ने पर चल सकते हैं और चले। उसी तरह हमें अगर देखें कि जेएफ जो चाइना के साथ जो ये सारी टेक्नोलॉजी का मुआहदा 15-20 साल पहले हुआ, उसमें मियां नवाज शरीफ साहब ने शुरू किया, फिर अगली हुकूमतों ने भी उसको जारी रखा और हमें फ़ज़ाई बरतरी दिखाई। तो इस वक्त जो ईरान की सबसे बड़ी कमज़ोरी ये थी कि वो दावे तो बहुत किए उसने कि उसके पास न्यूक्लियर टेक्नोलॉजी है, लेकिन वो उसको वो टेस्ट नहीं कर सका, वो बम नहीं बना सका, वो सारी चीज़ें उसका अमली जामा उसको नहीं पहना सका। तो इस वक्त इंटरनेशनली असूल एक ही है, जिसके पास ताकत है दुनिया उसके आगे झुकती है। पाकिस्तान ने ताकत दिखाई
अपने से 10 गुना बड़े दुश्मन को वसाइल में भी था, रकबे में भी था, आबादी में भी था, दफाई तौर पे भी था, लेकिन उसको उन्होंने इतना मारा कि उन्होंने चंद घंटे के अंदर अंदर अमेरिका जाके उनकी मिन्नतें की कि हमें इस अजाब से निकलवाएं, हमारी जंग पर
सॉरी फॉर इंटरप्शन, ईरान की जानिब से जवाब दिया गया है, लेकिन एक भरपूर जवाब के बारे में कहा जा रहा है कि दिया जाएगा इसराइल को। फिल वक्त ईरान टाइम गेन कर रहा है कि किस अंदाज में इसराइल को और किस किस जगह पर निशाना बनाया जाए, या फिर वो रिस्ट्रेन का मुजाहरा करेगा इस हमले के बाद भी? आपका क्या ख्याल है?
देखिए, एक